Okay. Biopsychosocial model. These are three different issues or three different perspectives taken together: biological, psychological, and social. As per the definition of health by WHO, which talks about health comprises of biology, psychology, and social aspects, we need to understand how these three play a role in understanding our illness and health. A model that in many respects is more similar to what we currently find most plausible in regular healthcare is the biopsychosocial model. This model is based on the assumption that there is a type of matter that you can approach in two ways. One type of matter can be approached in a subjective and objective manner. Someone who is sick has symptoms associated with that illness, but responds to it in an individual, unique way. The biopsychosocial model, therefore, takes physical, social, psychological, and cultural aspects into account when an illness or symptoms are explained. For example, if someone is having diagnosed with COVID-19 or corona. Now, what are the symptoms of COVID-19? We all know by now. There would be fever, there is body ache, body pain, loss of smell, loss of taste. These are the major symptoms. Dry cough and some other associated symptoms are also there. And what is the treatment protocol? Treatment protocol is getting some antibiotics, vitamin B complex, vitamin C, zinc, and if there is fever, you will be given antipyretics. So this is generally followed for almost all patients, those who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. But the recovery rate for individuals vary in the sense some of them respond very quickly to the symptoms to subside, but for others it's not that easy, though the symptoms are same. In biological model, because this is primarily a biological approach through which we try to alleviate the symptoms. Now somebody is not having fever, not having body ache, and the taste and smell is back, but he is not feeling well even if the symptoms have subsided. So how are you going to treat this kind of cases? And there is no medicine as such available. So subjective feelings are more important here than the objective or symptomatic treatment of a particular illness. Then comes the role of the psychological model. I'm not feeling well, though my symptoms are not there. My symptoms are subsided. Somehow I don't feel well. And the next is the surrounding where I am living is unhealthy. The society where I do live, they do not accept me as a normal human being after being diagnosed with corona. Is there a medicine available for this? Because it's there in the minds of the people. How can you cure that disease? Is there a pill to cure that? Certainly there is no pill for that. And this is more dangerous. Biological models simplified everything, and the model suggests medicine is the cure for all. It is not true. We found that to calm your mind and to make the society understand that it is a normal process, it is something not to be feared. Rather, we need to cooperate. We need to give strength to the individual. It is getting stigmatized. You all have experienced this, or I mean, those who, if you at all have been suffered from COVID-19, or people you know, or in the newspapers, television, you know this is happening. People with corona were treated differently. We don't have a medicine for that. Because the mind is much more complex than we think. And we can't have a medicine for mind. You may argue psychiatrists give you mind medicines. For your kind information, there is no medicine called mind medicine, because the profession of psychiatry is also based on biological models, understanding of the body only, not about mind. We do not know where mind resides in the body. No one knows. So how to give medicine for mind related problems? So the best way to deal with mind is to understand the thought processes, is to understand how we perceive, how we observe, how we interpret. Are there any problems in our perceptual process, in our thought process, in our interpretation of ourselves and others? Then we may think about the solutions. Well, there is no standard definition or standard meaning of what is called correct way of thinking, correct way of perceiving, correct way of observing, correct way of interpreting things. But at the same time, we are well aware of our erratic thought process, erratic perceptions, erratic observations, and erratic interpretations of the situation. Now, for many people, it is not possible to understand their erratic mental processes. So the job is not done by the psychiatrist alone, because psychiatrist gives you medicines that changes some kind of biochemicals, because that's a chemical drug. Chemical drugs act on the biochemistry or the chemistry of the body. The thoughts that act on the chemistry is much more powerful. In order to regulate those thought processes, in order to see whether we are in the correct direction, we need to consult people who have been specially trained in understanding the mind. The psychologist, not all specialized people, those who are working with the clinical population or those who are practicing counseling, if they are competent enough, they can understand where and what goes wrong, the psychological as well as social aspects. And for your information, there is no such thing that we can cure the society. There is no medicine, because society will function on its own way. You can't control the society. We have control over the bodily symptoms through medicines. We have control over the mind if counseled well. We still can control that. But what is beyond our control is how society looks at us, how society interprets us, how society perceives us. I can't change the perspective of the society. And who is society? Anybody and everybody except you, around you, is the society. And the culture, you are brought up in a particular culture. So the things you perceive in a way that suits to your culture might not be the correct way in another culture. So societal interpretation of your behavior or your problems, or cultural interpretation of your behavior or problems, are beyond our control. This is what we have learned from the biopsychosocial model of illness. Since the bidirectional two-way relationship between body and mind gains more understanding, the tension between monists and dualists has decreased. So earlier, as Greek philosophers have defined body and mind as separate, but gradually we have realized that they are interdependent. So the tension between monists and dualists has decreased. Psychology and Freud have contributed to this. Sigmund Freud, who is a pioneer in the field of psychological practices for various mental illnesses. Freud, though a psychiatrist, much of his practice were, or much of his therapeutic interventions were behavioral or non-chemical methods, because he believed that it's the mind that matters, and the unconscious aspect of our mind has a major role to play in our lives. And that's how he has developed his theory of understanding human being or human thought process, and how different kind of illnesses do occur, and what are the treatment protocols. He has developed many treatment protocols. Monists believe in the fact that there is one kind of matter. So body and mind are of the same matter. In contrast, dualists say that the body is physical, but the mind is not. They believe that the mind and the body are separated. Now, I'll pause here for a discussion. What is your understanding on body and mind? Do you think body and mind are same, or they are different entities? Yeah. What is your idea, or what do you think, whether body and mind are the same or different? Yes, Asis.
Yes,
Asis
sir.
Meher.
I
Yeah.
think body and mind both are different things.
Mm.
So body does all the physical work,
Mm.
like our hand is used to catch or hold something, use legs to walk or run, eyes used to see or visualize, and mind is a whole different thing.
Mm.
It is a For me, it's a very vast place
Mm.
where a person can live there for a whole life, goes on thinking and thinking about their past, about their future thing, and mind also controls every every work that we do.
Mm. Okay. Rahul Meher.
Sir, I believe that they're not separate and not different. Rather, they're highly interconnected with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, as you said, sir, when we get depressed, we tend to eat more. This is a example that shows that how our mental state can end up affecting our physical state.
Mm.
Uh, that's what I believe in
Okay.
short.
Okay. So we have both systems. People believe that body and mind are separate, and some people also believe that body and mind are inseparable. Uh, well, let's get some more opinions on this. Anyone else? Yeah, Parthipan. Parthipan.
Yes, sir. Like I completely agree with Rahul Mehra because we can't say like both are different actually. So we can say like both are interconnected. Like if you like see, if I am mind I am happy, but physically I'm unwell, like you can't say completely that you are healthy. Like the same way, physically I'm healthy, mentally I'm having some sad or something like that. It will directly affect somehow. It will affect the physical activity. Maybe you'll be feel low, or maybe you'll be inactive in your works. Like both are interconnected. Like if you are physically weak, of course it will affect your mental health. Of course, if you are mentally weak, like mentally if you are feeling unwell, it will affect the physical health. Like we can't say both are different, but both are interconnected.
Both are interconnected. Yes. I mean, you have dependency of body on mind and mind on the body because they are not completely two different entities, but they are uh, from the same uh, entity, that is, that different representations.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Any other views? How many of you believe that mind and body are one? Raise your hands. Mind and body are one. Asis, you said they are two different entities, but now you're saying they're one.
Yes, sir. My view has means they are
Okay,
interconnected.
okay. Yeah, let me see how many of you say that mind and body are same. Keep raising your hands, don't lower it. I hope I am audible to all of you. So be quick in responding to my question. If you believe that mind and body are inseparable and they are different representation of the same uh, entity.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Yes, Akash.
Sir, if I think that mind is a physical entity, then mind and body both are same. If I think that we think that mind and both brain, the two things are same. But if I think that mind is an unphysical thing, then mind and body are different definition. They are not the same then.
Okay. So from the hands raised, I can find there are 41 people who believe that mind and body are same. Most of you believe that mind and body are separated. They are not the same. Okay. Let me show you one video by Dr. B.M. Hegde. If you know him, I do not know. This is a TEDx talk that he talks about Ayurveda. I am not preaching or promoting anything here. Please lower your hands. This is just to give you an orientation how a perspective is represented. So let me share that video with all of you. This is a long video, so just watch and uh, see whether we match with the thought processes or not. Please lower your hands, all of you, those who have raised their hands. in this video, he is talking about Ayurveda over Western medicines, and where he brings in the philosophy of Eastern one, and probably will bring in uh, the idea of uh, mind and body. So watch it, and if time permits, we can go with uh, the discussion. Else, in the next class, we'll discuss that. So I am sharing the video shortly. Could you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll just get check if you can hear the audio also.
Well, friends,
Can you hear the audio?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I am muting myself, and then you can watch it.
it's nice seeing you this afternoon, and you must have been tired at the fag end of the day hearing so many speeches. Is that right? No, I'm not going to bore you. They want me to talk on a new subject called Western medicine, which they call as modern medicine, vis-a-vis the ancient Indian system of medicine. To know the difference, you must first know the difference between human body, how it works, and how it can be mended when it goes wrong. Science is change. If it doesn't change, it's not science. Anything that doesn't change is religion. What changes is science. And the science is, today's science doesn't agree with what we all learned and you still learn in colleges, the conventional physics, chemistry, and biology. But the new physics, quantum physics, has uprooted the whole thing. And that makes it easier for you to understand the human body. Now we think in the Western medicine, in Western medical non-science, we think human body is made up of different parts. Like, you have automobile engineers, mechanical engineers with different parts. You make a car, first fix the chassis, then the body, then the engine, and things like that. That's how it is made. So that is not how the human body is made. If you understand in evolutionary biology, you are the one cell, one single nucleated cell when you're made on your mother's womb on the first day. That's called the zygote. That's the first nucleated cell. And this cell, one cell, divides and divides and divides. And today, you are a colony of 120 trillion such cells. And each one of these cells is a human being, capable of doing all that you do. So much so, you are not I, you are we. You are a colony of so many people. This difference, please remember that when you say I and that I, that feeling, illness starts. When you have we, that feeling, wellness comes in. And this is where no human being is independent. Remember that? However big you are, however money you have, you still are dependent on others because inside your body, for every single cell that is human, you have 10 times cells which are germ cells. Without these germ cells, you cannot survive at all. Between the mouth and the anus, you have 10 to the power 13 germs. And in the mouth, you have 3 billion germs. And if even a few germs die, you get completely disorganized. And disease starts there. So germs are not our enemies, germs are our friends. In short, we are germs. For 120 trillion cells, you have 360 trillion germ cells. And we have, we inherit from our parents because we say, oh, you're like your father, you're like your mother, etc. The inheritance from genetic inheritance from the parents is just 23,000 human cells in a genome. But you have same genome, you have 2.5 trillion germ genes, metabolomes, germinomes, virinomes, and all kinds of things. And you can imagine the contribution from your parents to you is 23,000 divided by 2.5 trillion. So hardly matters. So it's not the genes that run your body as you think in the olden science. In the new biology, it is the environment that runs it. That is where it's very important to know the environment is very important for disease or disease correction or treatment. Now, in the Western medicine, what we do is we have quick fixes. Supposing you have a disease, immediately we give a quick fix and we think it cures the problem. No, it doesn't. Actually, it creates another problem. In short, I always tell my students, there is no pill for every ill, but there is an ill following every pill. Did you get this? That's called adverse drug reactions. As a matter of fact, audit now shows in the West that the leading cause of death is not cancer or heart attack, but adverse drug reactions, which is called ADR. Because we know in the Western non-science, one drug for one disease under ideal circumstances, which is called evidence-based medicine. But unfortunately, in a patient, we don't give one drug. Some of the patients, if you see, it's a laundry list of drugs, about 18, 15 drugs. And there is no science to say what happens when you combine two drugs. But do you know how people are alive? A study showed that when you give one tablet to a patient and tell him to take it daily, the remembrance or the compliance is only 73%. 27% forget, they don't take correctly. Now, when you make it 2 tablets a day, it falls to 42%. When you make it more than 3 tablets a day, it comes down to 22%, which means a 78% of people whom you prescribe this multiple laundry list, they don't take those medicines. If they did, they wouldn't be here. With every single pill has, like for example, I'll give you a very small thing. Every painkiller that you take, what's called NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, can give you a heart attack up to 5 years. From the time you take the medicine, up to the next 5 years, you can get a heart attack. Somebody says, oh, he's fine, he's very healthy. Why did he get a heart attack? He must have been taking every day pain-killing drugs. If you have a headache, one pop a pill. If you have a backache, you pop a pill. And this also damages the kidney. One of the commonest causes for renal dialysis today are the NSAIDs, which damage the kidney. In short, the linear reductionist science of the West. Reductionism, I don't think for you people I should describe what is reductionism. We have to look at the human body as a whole. You can't take a bit and examine it. Like for example, somebody gets a cancer. What do? We take the biopsy of the cancer, a bit of the cancer, and then smear it on the glass slide. By then the cells are all distorted. Then stain it with the eosilin, hemoxilin. So you poison the cells. And then when they dries up, you put it under the microscope and look at it. Now the cells look horrible because they're distorted. But you can't know what that cell is. Because a normal cell and a cancer cell work alike. Remember that? I'll repeat that. A normal cell and a cancer cell work alike. And I don't know how anybody can kill a cancer cell without killing the normal cell. I'll give you an analogy. Supposing a bird comes into your house, a new bird comes into your house. To know what the bird is, where did it come from, where is it going, what's going to happen to the bird, what we do in the Western science is kill the bird, biopsy it, and then put it in the microscope and study the cells and say, this bird came from so and so. That's exactly what we do in cancer. When we say we have a cancer which we describe as metastatic, anaplastic, this, that, etc., doesn't tell you anything about the cancer. So a great biologist, Nobel laureate, Albert Szent-Györgyi wrote, I quote, I do not know what cancer is because cancer cell works like an exactly normal cell. And I don't know the distinction between the two. And I don't know how to treat a cancer cell without killing the normal cell. See, this is where we are in Western reductionist medicine. Come to Ayurveda, the mother of all medical wisdoms in the world, probably one of the oldest, along with various other systems in the East, like Chinese, Tibetan, and also Tibetan, of course, is a part of the Indian system, but also the Egyptian system. Now, all these systems started long, long ago when this reductionist science did not come to us from the West. Reductionist science started in 1742 with that little boy, 17-year-old mathematician in René Descartes, who said, cogito ergo sum. Because I think I am. If he had understood it a little later and a little wider, he should have said, I am thinking and that's why I am able to live. What he says is, I run this world. This is the problem with us in reductionist science. This world in the new quantum physics worldview is much bigger than what you can grasp. In short, quantum physicists say we can comprehend much more than what we can grasp. The usual conventional science is due to your five senses. And that is not the science because five senses don't tell you anything. And what you know in conventional science is 5% of this world, 5%. And 95% you don't know. But when you come to quantum physics, you seem to know the whole lot. And Ayurveda is based on quantum physics worldview, which takes into consideration the whole world and your surroundings. And this is very important to know about anybody's illness or wellness. Because unless you know that, you will not be able to consider how to treat him. Or I wouldn't want to use the word treat, how to manage an illness. So when once the human body is afflicted with an illness, we have to find out a lot of things. The most important part of the human body is his consciousness, which is called the mind in simple English. And where is the mind? Never mind. No, the mind is not in the brain. I just want you to remember that. Most of us think the mind is in the brain. The mind is not in the brain because brain is such a small thing, it can't hold mind. Mind is a huge thing. Mind is called consciousness, awareness. In Sanskrit, it is called gochara. Gochara. Sanskrit is a fantastic language which gives you a comprehensive idea of the subject. Gochara could also mean the path on which the cows walk. But gochara is the awareness, consciousness. And you have your own consciousness, which is a part of the universal consciousness. And this consciousness works. In short, your human body is just mind only. So mind is not in the brain, mind is in the body. And now quantum physics says matter is energy and energy.
Hello, sir. Hello.
And the body is energy. And body is not matter. And if any matter at the subtlest and subtlest and subtlest level. And I found one day there is no matter at all. And Hans Peter Dewar writes, I call this as E is equal to M as a duality. There is no duality between the two. And when you say it's a duality, he says, I am a child in front of these Indian sages who thousands of years ago called it as Advaita. And he so beautifully says, matter is energy, energy is matter. In this stanza, and he quotes that stanza, Bahirantascha bhutanam, it's inside and outside of everything. Charam acharamevacha. Energy moves, but you all look solid. There's nothing solid about you. It's only maya. It's illusion. Your body is an illusion of your mind. And he says, Sukshmavate tavijnayam. It's so subtle that nobody can see it. Nobody can see an electron. Why can't you see an electron? Electronic students, why can't you see an electron? When you say you can't see God, if you got a BSc or a MSc, then you say God doesn't exist because I can't see him. But you have not seen an electron, and you describe the electron in several ways and got Nobel Prize. You accept that, right? You can't see an electron because to see anything, to see you, a few photons must leave you and hit my retina. Then only I can see you. I become aware of your existence. But if one photon leaves an electron, it no longer becomes an electron. So nobody can see an electron. That's what it says. Sukshmavate tavijnayam. Durastam. When you don't know, you don't know. Cha, aniketa chatat. When you know it's inside you. That's about energy. And this energy is you. And this energy is the one that when it's altered, you get disease. And when it's normal and very nicely balanced, you are healthy. Now, this is the concept of Ayurveda. Ayurveda doesn't say there's a disease, you treat it. No. It says swasthasya swastha rakshitam. Preserve the wellness of the healthy, which is very easy, cheap, and more profitable than treating a disease. But the Western medicine is after money. And for everything, we want money, we want to collect money, and we want to make money. And make money is our now problem. Western medical, Hippocrates, who was the father of Western medicine, said, do not make money in the sick room. Remember that? Do not make money in the sick room. But today what happens? If you are ill, you go to a corporate hospital, you see, you will come out with or without a disease, but without your properties. America is feeling the pinch in a big way, and now English NHS, where free medicine is given, is in real trouble. NHS is almost equal collapsing. So they want Eastern medicine to come into these places. That is why Ayurveda is becoming very popular in the West. I just came back from Germany a week ago, where Germans and all the Eastern European nations, they want to have Ayurvedic hospitals in their country. So they had called this meeting to get ideas as to how to go about it. And you will be surprised, in January we have a meeting in London, and in April we have got a meeting in Brussels. So all these places there now, because money has become very, very. Now there is no limit for Western medicine, quick fixes. Supposing everybody wants a heart transplant to be given to a heart patient, where will you get this from money? Where the money from? Everybody wants a liver transplant for liver disease, thinking that human body is a machine like the motor car, where if the carburetor is gone, you put a new carburetor. That doesn't happen in the human body. You will be surprised to know that this one cell that I told you that you were when you were in mother's womb, that's called the zygote, that one cell divides into 120 trillion cells. But the beauty is, it doesn't fully divide. Only a partial wall comes in the cell, and 1 becomes 2. Another partial wall comes, 2 becomes 4. Another partial wall comes with 8, 16, 32, and so on and so forth. So much so, at the end of the day, when you are 120 trillion cells inside you, you are what is called a syncytium. You are just one sheet, and all cells are connected. You would be surprised. You take a brain cell and its genome, and a heart cell and its genome, they're identical. Two cells, one in the brain, one in the heart, might have identical genome, which gives me a new idea, which I'm just having an idea. I have just put it as a hypothesis and published it, that if this happens, we don't have to get someone else's organ to transplant. We can get our own organs and transplant it to us, and those organs can grow. Like, for example, you need a small bit of the liver for liver transplant from someone else. It may be from your mother, father, husband, wife, or child, anybody. Instead of that, we probably can take a bit of the normal liver from your own part, your own body, and then transplant it to your deceased part of the liver. I'm just saying this speculation because we are all related. These are all connected. And these are not different cells that you are 120 trillion cells. The same cell which is divided. But because of what is called cosmic, morphic resonance. Morphic resonance is a word I don't want to explain because it's a very complicated word. Morphic resonance gives you the blueprint of every molecule to an atom. So when the energy and matter interchange in the human body, they do it 1024 times a minute. This is called the Planck's 1024 times a second, Max Planck constant. And that means each time the energy becomes matter, the energy knows the blueprint of the matter. And if you teach this energy to change the blueprint to a normal body, it becomes this is called quantum healing. If you want to know more about quantum healing, one of the professors of quantum physics in Eugene, in the United States, has written a book called Quantum Doctor. If you read that, it's a very nice book which tells you how to cure yourself. And this is the old Ayurvedic system, because Ayurveda believes in a human body as a closed system in systems biology, because you engineers understand systems biology. Closed system is a system where everything happens on its own like a geyser. You switch it on, water gets heated. When you don't use it, it gets cooled, and then it gets heated when you need it, and always you have hot water. But the open system is like an olden days bucket. A bucket of cold water, you want hot water for a bath, you put a heater yourself, and when the water is hot, you remove the heater. So you require an outside intervention for every mistake in the human body. That was the original thinking of Western medicine. But today in Ayurveda, and that is coming to the Western medicine also, that evolutionary biology tells us that a human system is a closed system, which when you are born, the system has got an ingrained doctor himself, which is called the immune system. So most of the time, if not all the time, this doctor cures you. But in case the doctor fails, then only symptoms come and you have to go to the artificial doctors like me. But normally, if you can keep your immune system good, and you will be absolutely fine without any outside intervention, because it's a closed system. Now, very interestingly, this concept is alien to Western medicine. Western medicine thinks it's an open system. For everything, I must interfere. No. So Western system is bad, but you can't throw it out, lock, stock, and barrel. The water is bad, so you can't throw the baby away, because for quick fixes, emergency quick fixes, like I fall under the car, let us say, I break my bones. I can't say I'll take Ayurveda and do yoga and pranayama and get better. No, the bones will have to set. Supposing I become unconscious and I am taken to the intensive care unit, I require some intensive quick fixes. But mind you, This is only 2% of the sick population in a given day. 98% can make do with the Ayurveda like alternate systems. There's so many other systems. It's not just Ayurveda, homeopathy, Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani. Unani is a fantastic thing which started in Arab countries and it has done a lot of progress. So all these systems are good things. So there should not be a monopoly for one system. What we should have is a judicious combination of all systems where emergency quick fixes come from modern medicine, Western medicine, and all other things come from various other systems. And we have put together a system which is called the future medicine, or what's called meta medicine. You know, Aristotle wrote physics first and then psychology next, and it's called metaphysics is psychology. Meta is after. So meta medicine is the future medicine. And the future medicine will have to be perforce a combination, because Western medicine alone has become prohibitively expensive and you can't go on with that. All that I wanted to make out is that if you combine various systems of medicine and a judicious combination, authenticate everything that you do. You shouldn't be a quack. You must authenticate scientifically everything that you want to incorporate into this new system called meta medicine. I think the future is very bright for mankind on this planet. Thank you very much.
What does AI mean for business leaders and for business managers? How
I hope all of you have enjoyed the lecture by Dr. M. Hegde.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You might be having some questions. So if you have any questions, you may either post in this MS team or in the WhatsApp group. So whenever we find time, we can discuss some of the questions. There is not much time left for today's discussion. We can have one or two questions here, and then others can pose questions for next discussions. Yeah, one or two questions. Any observations of about the health system that he talks about, how duality is a concept which Ayurveda suggests, and there should not be a monopoly of a particular health system, and every system works well if you can find the best in those systems. In fact, I have my publications in mental illness, where I have talked about an eclectic healing model. Eclectic healing model for the mental illnesses. That is particularly with the tribals I have worked. So they have different systems of understanding mental illness, and also they apply various therapies. Sometimes some therapies work and sometimes some other therapies do work. So based on that, this concept was given in one of my publications on eclectic healing model. Probably we have come to a stage where we need to understand the benefits of different systems, rather rejecting one system for the other. Let us understand each other's system and what works best in which condition should be given some prominence. That is what is called a holistic kind of healing system. When I talk about a biopsychosocial model, I am trying to integrate the systems, not disintegrate different things and try to fix it like a machine. Okay, so there is not many questions right now. Yeah, there is one question. What does he really mean by quantum healing? Well, that would be too long to give you an answer. You can find it about quantum healing, how it is working. From the principles of quantum physics, he talks like medical science and physics. they are going in different directions. So how it is possible? He has explained in some of his videos. You can watch them to understand how quantum healing works on human body and mind. Akash, yeah, your question?
Sir, hello.
Yes, yes, Akash.
The few minutes later, previous time you asked our question that is mind and body both the same or not, right?
Yeah.
After finishing this lecture, I realized that a mind is a combination. A mind is a combination of every cell's thought, right? He is explaining like that every cell have a thought power. Then it's we can realize we can realize our mind by thinking about the every cells, and we think about a colony like I am the king of a colony right, like he is say like that. If I'm uh, is it so what is mind now? A big question is it a physical entity or like it's the duality, it's a both
Well,
mind,
I
it's
think
a
you go back once again and listen to him once again.
mm,
You may or may not listen to this lecture. You can search him in YouTube for other videos regarding this. You'll get a clear idea how he interprets mind and body. Uh, and then in the next class, we'll discuss.
yes.
Okay, since time is up, I have to stop this class here. Just wait for me for your attendances.